slight change of tack here. So this is our final session. We will still finish on time. This is born out of a conversation I've had with Tim a couple of times, and he's talked about how, well, you gave a quote once about how it's an antiquated industry, and you said it's ripe for disruption. We never quite got into what that disruption might look like. So I thought it was worth really drilling into how the industry, and I guess you're saying, because you're a chief marketing officer for Burgess, you're saying through marketing essentially, but maybe not directly. How do you see this industry being disrupted? Where's it coming from?
I think we have to become client-centric, I think, and I always get told off for saying that we're not client-centric, but I think, and all I can talk about is the big turquoise brand, but we're very good at customer service, but I'm not sure that as an industry we're client-centric. I'm not sure we build our experiences, we build our brands around our clients. I think we do an awful lot and we touched on boat shows earlier, but when you look at a boat show, you know, how many B2B meetings are happening on the Burgess stand versus how many client meetings are happening on the Burgess stand. I just think I would agree that I do think it's right for disruption, but it can't be done in isolation. I think as an industry we have to recognize that if you look outside, and we can be quite slow to look outside of our own industry, but there are so many other luxury verticals that have been disrupted. And I think it's coming for us, and whether we're in control of it or not, I think it's coming, and I think we should be in control of it. I think we need to get hold of it as a group of brands, as a group of individuals, as a room, and think actually what do we need to do to evolve it. But I think that starts with client centricity and really putting the client at the heart of everything that we do. And of course, we say that we do as Burgess. Well, I'm sure Feadship, etc. From when you're building a yacht, etc. When we're trying to buy or sell a yacht, it's client focused. But is it really client centric? And I'm not sure it is.
So how do you go about fixing that in the first instance?
I think we have to challenge ourselves. I think it's how do we market? What do we do? I think as the brands on the panel have all tried different things, different approaches, but I think consistency is the key. And I think if you look at other luxury brands, they may be inconsistently consistent, but they're trying to disrupt, they're trying to do different things, create different experiences, but for longevity. And I think that's one of the challenges I face in my role, is actually investing in something, creating change for the long term is tricky.
I didn't introduce the panel at the start. I'm presuming everyone knows Farouk here from Feadship. Farouk, what are your thoughts on disrupting the industry? Where do you see it coming from?
For me personally, disruption is not about being different. It's about how do you resonate with a certain group or a certain target group to enable yourself to stand out. Yeah? I'm going to do something different for a change, because throughout the whole event, you've had everybody sitting down, but if I would just ask any random person, what is the last advert campaign that made an impression on you?
In the Netherlands?
Doesn't matter.
Cool Blue. I like it.
Why?
Because it always makes me smile.
There you go. You have an example?
No, I don't know.
No?
No, not.
Shall I tell you what mine is? It has everything to do with Viagra. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? You do? So, it's actually about an Italian brand. Picture this. There's a very old man who has a very young, energetic girlfriend. And she steps into their beautiful castle-like villa bedroom, and she's totally into the moment, seducing him. He is so excited, he gets quickly to another room and gets his little pill. And what does he do? He tries to throw it in his mouth, and it falls on the floor. Onto the window, outside, off the rooftops, and you follow this little pill into the streets, going down staircases, ending up at a gas station where a lady is putting fuel in her little Cinquecento. And the pill falls into the Cinquecento. And suddenly the car does doo, 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 and becomes their 600 model. Can you envision that? I remember that. I think that is cool, disruptive marketing because it resonates. And I think this industry specifically is very, very conservative in its approach. We are, picture a caravan going from city to city, from wherever in the world, building up our little stands, reaching out to a certain group of people, all showing models. It's fantasyless. It's without any form of very, very creative direction. And that's what, for me, disruption means. If everybody, literally, everybody turns left, you turn right. Whatever you think the opposite.
Is that what you're doing at Feadship, or does Feadship need to do that, given its place in the market?
It's not about being different. It's about how do I enable myself to resonate and become closely connected to the target audiences that we are reaching out for. Disruptive means, I'll give you an example. How many people know that Feadship last year pulled out their booth out of the Monaco Yacht Show? Right? It was, everybody was talking about it. For us, that was a moment that we used based on a very rational decision. It is simply the point where you get when you look at your ROI. Are we looking at this video? You have to have the voice with it. That is, yeah. So we pulled out exactly for the reasons you mentioned, because we are there to sell, not to buy. And we're spending, someone said before that I'm going to tell them how much we're spending. We are not. We're not going to say, but it's a lot of money. We pulled out of the Monaco Yacht Show booth, but we had a yacht there, and we have a huge hospitality where all our clients come. It's in the Wine Palace. So we are still there, and we are an exhibitor. But what we did is, one day before the show started, we hosted a huge client event at La Colle Noire, which is the private villa of Christian Dior. You can see it on our Instagram page, where we had a fairy tale event. A beautiful event. And what happened there was, it was so beautifully curated, organized by my amazing colleagues and staff. She's sitting right there, Carla. Raise your hand, Carla. And what we did there, we held a beautiful event. People went home, our clients. We did it à la française, by the way. You had 75 people, a lineup of 75 waiters, and everybody got their food at the same time. And that embodiment of total immersive experience is what we do. Everybody went home with a big bag of Dior, back to Monaco, and everybody was asking, what's that? Why is everybody walking? It was the Feadship event. That's what we do.
Which is interesting. Tim, you mentioned earlier about your turquoise brand, and you have things on the quay there at Monaco. Is it more about sort of B2B? Is it more about all the Burgess staff having a beer at the end of the day? Was it serving the clients? I mean, when you hear Farouk talk about that from Feadship, does that kind of make you think, well, maybe we need to be more disruptive than that?
I think you're right. I think a lot of it is, there's a bit of chest beating of us at the end of the dock. But I think we have to continue to look at it. I mean, what are we doing it for? I would argue that cramming 10,000 people onto a dock and asking them to buy a super yacht is probably not the right way to to be doing it. We should be anchoring 5 or 6 yachts off on Tebe and then taking clients out to those yachts. So I think I just think that whole experience we need to think very carefully about for the longevity of the industry of actually, are we selling this in the right way?
Henry, I'll bring you in at this point. You work for Cecil, right? You're a sort of, upstart, if you like, boutique brokerage. You kind of feel as if you're disruptors in the space a little bit?
Disruptive, I think it's quite a strong word. I think we're active at trying to make change. I think, and you're right, and the word antiquated is certainly correct. And when I came into the industry in 2012, it really did appear very antiquated, even compared to existing industries. The small changes we've made, one of the most disruptive, if you could use the word, things we did was introduce 3D scanning and modeling to the yachting. And it's something which I was quite surprised by how slow the uptake has been using it as a tool. It was back in 2015, I think, or 16, that I first did it on a yacht called Turquoise. And since then, we've and actually through COVID, it became such a useful tool for us. We sold yachts to people who'd never physically seen them. So I'd argue probably the most disruptive thing that's happened to our industry isn't what the industry is doing, it's who our clients are. So if you consider the average age of a client has come down so significantly in the last 15, 20 years, and the generation now who are buying these and ordering these large yachts from yards and obviously in the brokerage market, they're very computer savvy and they're reliant on technology. And it's for us to present these yachts to them in a way that they understand and comprehend. And obviously the US market, as we know, as we just heard, you can sort of feel the heat from this seat from Bob. These guys understand the tech. And there's something called Matterport, which is something we use, and I implore anyone to use it if they want to sell their boats. Because if you want to convey something to someone who's thousands of miles away, do it as accurately as possible. Don't hold back information, don't give crap photography, and just be willing to work with brokers who are anywhere. And I think, one of the things which we do, and I'm not going to drop any names here, but we're fair. We market ourselves within the industry as a fair brokerage to deal with. There are other brokerages who are not fair to deal with. And whether that be on retail charter or whether that be on sale. And they bully on commissions and they don't treat the other businesses in a fair manner. That's something which I think needs to stop. When you look at where the big deals happen, I'm sure Chris may have mentioned this yesterday, the 10 or 20 biggest deals done in the world last year, 50% of them were done by brokerages with less than 10 people. Now, obviously, there's a lot of saber rattling and big marketing spend going on around showing off these massive fleets of yachts that are for sale. But the reality is that to your benefit or is it to your client's benefit? The benefit really is you're looking, I hope, as the person trying to sell their boat, is for the client's benefit. And that means turning a yacht around quickly. And I did a huge amount of analysis when I came into the industry about how long CAs stay on the market, where the price reductions are, what it actually costs the owner over that period before the yacht sells. And you can very quickly see a picture of poor marketing practice in terms of benefit to the client versus benefit to yourself. It's a bit like a game of pass the parcel sometimes. You see these boats that go up these ridiculous asking prices, and you sort of wonder why. But the logic, obviously, is if you don't know the value of an asset, and you ask 3 individuals who you deem qualified to give you a value of said asset, why wouldn't you give it to the person who says they can sell it for 15 million instead of 10 million? But of course, if the reality is the asset's worth 9.5 million, and the person who said it was worth 10 was just trying to put a little bit of sensible margin in there, it's hard to go the other way without salient data to prove that. And that's something, I suppose, which we have now got a lot of. Because there are an enormous number of yachts we pitched for originally where we were basically laughed out of the room. How dare you say my yacht's worth so little? And of course, the reality is it was worth exactly what you said it was. But it's for another broker to say, I think it's worth 50% more than we are. That is now to their detriment, because I can now use that to market against them in this sphere. But it's a point which I think Will Christie brought up last year actually about yacht pricing, is it doesn't make sense a lot of the time. We need to, as an industry, collectively appreciate and understand that market liquidity is what drives a successful market, not a selfish sort of grabbing, greedy mentality where it actually isn't to the detriment of it is to the detriment of the client as opposed to the benefit.
Okay. Claire, I'm coming to you very shortly, but just on your notion of disruption, all that said, and we were talking about Monaco Yacht Show, there were you guys with big old-fashioned banners all the way around Monaco advertising Kismet. So that feels like you've sort of gone arguably, backwards, back to the old days of just big banners and spending a fortune on that. So how do you explain that?
Yeah, that was funny. That was actually one of mine and James's ideas. It was deemed such an obvious thing to have done, but no one does it. So why not have a lot of static paper banners? It seemed quite a logical thing to do.
Who were you trying to appeal to?
Well, that's appealing to anyone who's sat in a traffic jam, which is 99% of people in Monaco. You look out the windows, you're sat there, and what have you got to look at? And a lot of this advertising is subliminal, of course. You don't necessarily register that you're reading an advert, but it becomes an associative brand or name. Darren Brown did a very good thing about this, the psychology of marketing a few years ago. Worth watching. But that as a talking point, so many people raised it, and it just shows how effective it was. Because otherwise you're just there as another brand brokerage with a Range Rover with the brand written on the side of it.
Yeah. Tim, what did you were there? Obviously, you must have seen all their banners. What were your thoughts on that?
But I think it's down to each boat and each brokerage house to do what they see as fit. I think for me it's less about the boat now and it's more about the experience. And I think we are trying to change our approach to that. That actually, if you can sell a yacht without showing a picture of the yacht, then you're in quite a powerful place, because the yacht is essentially just a platform to an experience, whether you're chartering or ownering. It's a bit like hotels 20 years ago. It was all about the size of the room, and now it's about the view from the room or what you can experience locally. And I think increasingly, for me, the best yacht videos are going to be those ones where actually the yacht might be the last frame of the video, that all of this is possible on a yacht, because I think is potentially, certainly for a new generation, if you start by showing a big white boat, then it can be a turn-off. It's something that they don't understand in their language. Who's going to drive it? Where am I going to park it? Etc. And I think we just need to think quite cleverly about the next generation and how do we engage them. And it might not be yacht first.
Claire, it's your turn. So for those who don't know, Claire has an Instagram channel called This Is Odyssey. Yeah. You describe yourself as a digital expert. Does that work?
Oh, there you go. Thank you. My job has evolved as digital as. So a lot of people know me because of the creative stuff that I share, because I do that for fun. But generally, I'm a nerd, and I've always been in tech. And partly why I was good at digital marketing, social media, was I was always trying to target the right people, whether it's like a street. We had a campaign for a record label band that wanted to get signed. We found out where the key people lived and the office, and we just targeted them addresses, knowing that we would spend hardly any money targeting them to listen to their music. So I've always been in that side of the business in terms of targeting. So when I came into yachting, I was so shocked about how blanket, marketing was. And we were spending so much money on, the same old things. But then when you looked at people targeting the footfall of Monaco Yacht Show, there was hardly any ads targeting the footfall of Monaco Yacht Show. Now there is, and people have learned. But then also, now as AI evolves, and as, paid marketing is suffering, Google is struggling to, basically AI can develop an entire website, rip off any of your websites and make up a name, and they're struggling to detect. So Google Ads is suffering a lot. SEO is suffering. The way people are searching is changing. So, I've been really, obsessed with AI. I've got to admit, it's become an addiction. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know is about facial search. So I could pick anyone in this room and find out who they are from about the distance of the back of the room. So what does that mean for Monaco Yacht Show, boat shows, client parties, and family offices? One of the biggest concerns of a survey last year was privacy and AI, because, these people are a target for hacking, for security. Their kids are a target, everyone's a target. But if I'm sitting in a restaurant and the guy next to me is a billionaire just because I can facial search his face, it's a problem. So how do we obviously talking about marketing, one, how do we use it? So I was at the Palm Beach show with Lursen, they're one of my biggest clients. And, you know, they're easygoing to like, look, Clev, you've done your work, you know, you go off. And so I went off, and I have a broker client as well, and I sat on the top deck, and I facial searched everyone who walked on the dock to see who they were. Some were, you know, an actress, some were an escort, some were, you know, finance, brokers for their clients. And I just do it for fun, you know, because I was like, oh, it's interesting to know what people do. And we even sat in the bed and seen the CEO of Feadship, and we were like, we don't need to facial search him when I was at a broker's lunch. But yeah, it's a problem. But the other thing is, you know, even your own websites, you have clients at parties. I can go through your entire website, and if you've got a clients, you know, that weren't named before, I can now find out who they are. So this is actually something that's not hard. I actually can show anyone in this room how to do it to themselves. And a lot of the photos they find, you would never, ever know like they existed, because it's you at a buffet at the back of the room, it's you back of someone's holiday photos, and yeah, it's scary.
You can find out a lot of background detail about all these people, which strikes me as being extremely disruptive, particularly if it's in the wrong hands.
Yep, and it is in the wrong hands already, and that's the issue, because more and more international press are talking about it. And the first thing everyone's thinking, how is the government not banning this? How is Meta, Google, how are they, because they're using Google image search and other things. But it's like, you know, the dot-com boom happened, right? It started with two guys in a garage, and they made Google. So AI is the same. The people who are creating these softwares that you've never heard of are the ones that are in a garage in Silicon Valley just doing it because they have no regulation. And it's hard to, you know, surface the internet for them. They can change their names, and there's a new one next week. And we've already lost in that sense. So now you have to think, okay, how can I protect my clients? Because really the race for brokerage houses, shipyards, everyone is, okay, you give your information to us, your location of your yacht, your info of the crew. We're protecting it at all costs. Because, you know, from cyber attacks, from, you know, everything to do with, we're targeting people, but we're doing it the right way. So that's kind of the new, to me, marketing disruptor is what you're sharing online, and what is already online, you're doing audits of it.
Can I add something to that? Yeah, because it's a scary description of, and we're here to talk also about the opportunities of AI, because I see a lot of questions coming by. The generic trend of using AI in your marketing is going to evolve into hyper-personalized marketing. So what she's describing will enable you to be very, very precise in how you reach out to your customer group or the target group. It's already happening, because if you have a profile on whatever social media platform you have, you are in a certain bubble. Everybody recognizes that you were talking about something, and suddenly the ads appear about something that you were thinking of buying or talking about. So it's already happening. And it will regulate, hopefully, regulate itself. It's all new, it's evolving, but at the same time, you have to ask yourself, what can I do with it? Who in here is already using Midjourney, for instance, creating visuals, creating pictures or drawings, or who is already maybe using AI to render their designs. All of these are into the same mix. So the opportunities are equal to the number of risks that there are, but that's with everything at the moment. So I think you have to assess for yourself to what extent you are going to be using it. I think it would be ignorant to think that you can leave it aside and not do anything with it, because it will lag you behind your competition.
Tim, quick thoughts on that one before we go to questions?
I would absolutely agree. It's about personalization. And I think AI is it's scary, but it's absolutely a tool to be used to personalize. And the onus is on us. We're the ones selling. We should be personalizing every single touch point that the client has with our brands. And AI is gonna fast track that towards us, but we just have to be careful, as Farouk says.
Lovely.
I mean, I was gonna just say on that point, when Tim started this, it was all about journeys and how we're client-centric. So one of my clients said to me, Claire, I want to charter my yacht for the first time, audit the brokerage houses, find me which one is actually going to be the best. It's like, God, they're all very similar in their marketing speeches. Everyone has a stance and head office. So I did a mystery shopper. So he gave me a client that I could use, and I called up and asked for a client inquiry, similar boat. And it was remarkable about the response rate, the professionalism. You think, this is a real client. And I basically gave them a score because, at the end of the day, he wants charters. And if every single brokerage house is ordered on that level, then it's a very different story. And I was shocked about how one charter broker picked up the phone and they were like half asleep because they were on a rotor, obviously, in the US, and they were asleep and they picked up and confused. And then some just didn't even respond, or, it took so long to respond. And then you think, okay, if I want to go and do a villa of like 100 grand, they respond quickly and the process is much more efficient. So that 50th birthday that maybe I want to charter that yacht for, I'm not waiting a week. So we need to get better at response times and efficiency, and whether that's, how we automate that. We create it so it's easier, so the client feels like they're going somewhere with the booking.
We've got a few more minutes left. We'll just take a couple of these questions. Let's take just quick fire. What's the best marketing tool nowadays? Magazines, Insta, LinkedIn? Quick one down the line, I suppose. That's easy. Go, Tim.
I don't think there is one particular channel for me. It's make it personalised. Personalised to me might be a magazine. To you, it might be online. But we should know. So we've got the skills and the capability, data-wise, to know how you consume your messages and your media. So it should just be personalised rather than it being social or printed.
Farouk?
I think if that's the first question you're going to ask, you're already starting off at the wrong starting point. Because you have to ask yourself, who am I? What's my DNA? Who is my target group? For whom am I doing it? You go through what is my value proposition, the whole lineup of that, before you even start which marketing instruments you're going to be using, because that's the question. You don't need a brochure. Why should you start making a brochure about your company if you don't know for whom you're doing it? So
I would take it as a general yachting, and it's not social media, and I came from social media. We're all obsessing over it way too much. We're spending too much resource and with little effect, and I audit a lot. And we've gone from one extreme to the other, to day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 video reels that are seen by nobody. But, so, and that's a cost of the budget, So, yeah. I think social media has gone too far.
Henry, is this what you're thinking, or are you rapidly...
No, social media, there's so much out there, obviously. But one of the debates we've always had internally is, are you better to spend £10,000 on a double-page spread in Superyacht Times or Boat International, or are you better off taking 10 clients out for £1,000 lunches? Our industry is personal, as Tim keeps saying. It's when you try and understand what it is you're trying to achieve as a business, I can speak for Cecil, right? We aren't trying to be all things to all men, for sure, which is why we specialise. And I guess, going back to your point about disruption, that arguably is a disruptive point, by being the only brokerage that does specialise within the market. But you can't, there's no one silver bullet to it, for sure. You have to have a sort of cross-medium idea, but it's a question of just working out what works and putting budget towards it appropriately. But for sure, taking someone out for lunch or dinner, getting out from behind your desk is definitely a more effective way than just blasting emails around the place and hoping for the best. It just doesn't work. Going back to the point of AI, if you imagine it would be remiss not to, every brokerage who has a desk on the Monaco Yacht Show should have facial recognition AI. And if they don't, they're behind the times. What does that mean if they do? It means that every single person who walks around that show is going to get found out where they live, where they work, whatever it is, and they will be spammed. Now, how do you get yourself above that spamming? You write a nice handwritten letter, ask them out for dinner, they reply or they don't, and you go from there. And the cost of doing that is pretty minimal. Spending tens of thousands on marketing campaigns online where you have literally no understanding what the click rates are in terms of who's interested who's interesting for you as a business is difficult because we sell a product which people like looking at. The click rates on articles about Kismet and our various vessels, they're massive. But are there millions of people who have looked at that article? Are any single one of them actually able to charter the boat? And are any of them going to come and give you a phone call? Who knows? We can't tell from that unless you actually ask the person once they come and charter the boat, where did you first hear about us? At which point they probably won't even remember. You spam them so aggressively across every medium platform.
But despite all this chat, it basically comes down to going out for dinner with someone.
It's all about the relationship. That's what we say. It's all about your relationship with these people. Differentiate yourself. Understand the client. Understand what they need and deliver. Be honest. Don't bullshit. If you don't know the answer to something, find out. Come back to them.
Okay, we'll do one more question because we're out of time, but it's got 4 thumbs up, so it's obviously appealing. In a world full of negativity and with the perception of yachting decreasing, how can we improve the image of yachting? Should we go to Farouk first with that one?
Well, that's an easy one. First of all of you participate at the World Boating Day. Open up your doors, wave the flag, and if we do that all together, we make yachting a trending topic. So that's first. Second, let's start behaving like a professional industry. Open up your doors to media. Just speak. Don't be so closed. Prepare yourself with a proper Q&A, and you enable yourself, if you ask yourself the most difficult, shameless questions, and you're able to answer them, you can have a good dialogue with media. And yes, they are going to write negatively about you or because they're clickbait media. But open up. If we all do that with a proper set of Q&A and preparations, there's no need to let that negativity overcome us.
I think in an age where press is at its lowest influence, and that's why elections and politicians are in power, not that I'm for or against anyone, I think that it's more around the education at schools first, which is playing into what you're saying. And I think the press of the international, it's also the lowest read rates on international press. They're struggling. You're talking about, so obviously the incident that happened, I was tracking how many articles were being published a day. There was 160,000 articles published in a single day when that yacht sank. 160,000 articles. And then it continued, and it continued. And last year, negatively, obviously, we lost as an industry. But I think it's about education. I have friends calling me that know nothing about yachting, going, oh my God, yachting's dangerous. It's like, no, we should say there's, 8,000 plus yachts in the water over 25 meters, end of. And we've got to get better as an industry to communicate that, because there's a lot of yachts in the water and everything's fine. 99.9%.
Yeah, you're entirely right. And it's a bit like with helicopters. My wife is a helicopter broker, and the negative press around helicopters, it exists because it is so unusual for something to go wrong. I'm basically being the classic example in our industry. Yachting, prior to that accident, the rap that yachting has is a lot of sort of badly behaved Middle Eastern gentlemen and perhaps Russians back in the day, doing horrible things to people and paying for it through rather insalubrious means of income. But the reality of yachting, of course, is a family thing. If you look across your client spectrum, why do people use these yachts? It's for family time, away, privacy, security. And unfortunately, that's very boring. If you're reading the Daily Mail, you don't want to know how a nice, wholesome family's had a nice time on a yacht. You want to know how about sort of someone was ejected for being hammered out of sank on sank, and then they sank on sank themselves, falling off a tender. It's difficult to make the perception of yachting better because the press thrives off negativity generally, and most articles you read in the press are not positive. So how do we improve it in yachting? It's very difficult. Improve safety standards, make sure there are less incidents of accidents. We're lucky our industry is extremely safe, I'd say. So that's one way of doing it, but the image of yachting is only going to improve if the aspect of the press changes, which it won't. So we're a bit of a bind there.
Yeah, I suppose there's lots more to unpick there, and sustainability and all that business. We've run out of time for all that.
Only one remark. There was one question that I'm dying to answer.
Okay, which one's that?
So, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous asked about our the setup of our resale department. Feadship setting its own brokerage department, and whether that it was appropriate to invest in our marketing, because they feel, or I don't know what the exact question was, but yeah, there it is. Why should it appears they no longer see the need for brokers, which is totally untrue. First of all, we have here next to me beautiful, established, very professional brands that know their business. So how did this come along? We were being approached by our clients for years and years that simply didn't want to work with a broker. Why? Because there are so many brokers that simply don't know what they're talking about, except for those that do. And we know them. The established brands are there, and they are very successful, and there is definitely a very important need for that type of service. But those clients that were reaching out to us, they wanted to work via us. And we said, no, we don't do it. We only do it unless we co-list with an established broker. So we're literally serving the needs of the client and helping them, and we go to our broker friends to have a co-listing, and that's how we approach this. So who would you, and all brokers work together to execute a listing and find a client. So who would you rather work with? An established brand that literally knows only about our yachts, because we built them? Or do you want to work with someone that's literally in the market, not knowing anything, and just, representing whatever? So this is why we are doing it, and we're sticking to only our portfolio of very few listings, and we are bringing the fleet into the market. We're building every year. We are enlarging the fleet. Those 6 are going to scare you off. So that was my reply, and I'm not sure whether the person still feels comfortable in the answer, and if so, please get in dialogue with us. You're most welcome.
He's gone. Thanks, Farouk. Tim, I started with you. I'll end with you. Give us your final thoughts on how you improve the image of yachting and the world of disruption, and where we're going with all this.
I think it falls into Farouk's response. I think it's the client centricity. I think we improve it by let's engage a new generation. Let's understand what they want and let's give it to them, because word of mouth is the most powerful form of marketing. It doesn't matter how much I spend on the Monaco Yacht Show, on advertising in and around Monaco, whatever it may be. If our owner, our charterer is recommending us or recommending the experience, then everybody wins. So I think let's understand what the next generation wants, and let's really deliver. Let's actively listen and deliver to it.
Amazing. We will end there. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, panelists.